Last time we spoke about the Indian of Gufay Doma Liyam. There's a lot to be said about it, a lot more. But for now we'll move on. Maybe we'll get back to it. But just to end up, that this Indian of Gufay Doma Liyam, if you learn that the chilazon is like Rab Herzog, it's the antenna, then as long as you're willing to understand that gufay means not the guf itself, but it means the shell, which is a bit of a daichik. But then it's understood because the antenna is a snail which is very bright blue, brilliantly bright blue, and it fits in with doma liyam, doma lecheles, doma lerakia. If you learn like the radziner, the cuttlefish, there the radziner himself is bothered with this issue because the cuttlefish is not blue. But what he says is that doma liyam is the mitzias is the way the Rebbeinu Shalom protects it from its predators, is that it camouflages it, and in every single place that it goes, in every area, it turns the color of that area, of those whatever the algae, whatever the coloring in that area is. And he says that every single time it changes, there is a tinge of greenish blue always in it. And could be, he says, that the fact that the Chazal say doma liyam, I don't know if it won't fit necessarily with doma lecheles, but doma liyam means that it's doma to the yam, to the color of the ocean in that area where it's being camouflaged. The next memory the Gemara brings down in the briyaso in Menachos is briyaso doma leDag. Briyaso doma leDag. What's the type? Briyaso doma leDag. Rashi says tavnis diuknoi. So Rabbi Gershom says surasai, which means basically the same thing. That means its shape, its form, is a form of a fish, which sounds like that it's only doma leDag. Not necessarily a dag, it's doma leDag. The Rambam says it is a dag in itself. We'll have to get to the Rambam by itself. But the lashon of the Gemara is that it's tavnisoi, it's diuknoi, it's briyasoi doma leDag. Now, you learn that it's the murex. They have a difficult time. How is a snail doma leDag? In what way is it doma leDag in its shape? So, there are others that say, they want to say it's pashut, and these are more the wayuniks, which are willing to go more with disregarding the rishonim, the basic rishonim, dismissing them, disrespecting them. But they learn that the pshat is that when it says briyaso, it doesn't mean the shape, the form. Briyaso means the way it's created. A new way of learning pshat. Briyaso means the way it's created. And the way that the fish create these murex, the way these snails produce more snails, they spawn, they're just like fish in the way that they produce more snails. Now the truth is, this is not a distinguishing factor at all when it comes to the murex as opposed to any other fish, just about, or any other snail. So for Chazal to choose this and to say, briyaso doma leDag, because the way it's breed, the way it's created, is the same way that a dag is created, very schwer to say that that's what Chazal mean, but that's what they want to say. Now, Tavger has a different mahalach. He has also a very imaginative mahalach. And he says that if you look at the snail, at the murex, it's on the ground, it's on the floor of the sea, of the ocean. So in a certain sense, the fact that it stays still on the ground in one place, it's like bottle l'shem fish minei, because it doesn't move, you can see the difference between it and a rock. It's almost like a diamond. But on the other hand, it's alive, and it's a snail, and it slowly does move. So it is a fish. So is it a fish, or isn't it a fish? Zogen Chazal, briyaso doma leDag, it's doma, similar to a dag. It's in between a dag and not a dag. In the Levush Aron, and that's the Bnei Torah, they also have a difficulty. I mean, it's briyaso doma leDag. They know what the chilazon is. They know it's the murik. That's a fact. And so now they have to understand how briyaso doma leDag. So they say also that it doesn't mean the snail itself, but it means the shell, not the algae, but the shell itself. And in some cases, not in all cases, not in many cases, but in a lot of cases, in a certain percent, I don't know exactly what, the shell, if you look at the shell, and you look at it in a one-dimensional way, you take like the shadow of the snail, if you hold it at a certain degree, I don't know if it's like a 80, 90 degree angle, then you'll see that it has a little like narrower at one side, it gets a little wider in the middle, and then it gets a little bit narrower again, sort of like a square, sort of like a diamond. And so therefore they say, if you put that on a picture, and you take a shadow of a fish, and again you hold it also in a certain angle, at a certain degree, hold it up to the sky, you might be able to imagine yourself looking at a fish. As therefore, it's not mamash a fish, but that's what Chazal means. Briyaso doma leDag. It's doma leDag. If you want to have maybe a good chuckle, you look at the Levush Aron, page 78 in the Tafshin Ayin Hay edition. If you learn that it's the antenna, that's Rabbi Herzog's snail. It's also not so gewaldic, but he wants to suggest two things. He says that the way the Rebbeinu Shalom made this snail doesn't stay on the seabed, doesn't stay on the ground. What it does is the Rebbeinu Shalom made it that it produces a lot of bubbles, many hundreds, maybe thousands of bubbles underneath it, and that keeps it afloat. And mainly it goes and it almost looks like it's swimming around the water, not because it's its own swimming, it doesn't have fins or anything, but because of the bubbles around it and because of the current of the water, it's able to go around. And he says, as a matter of fact, if you look at a picture of it with all those bubbles, it rather does look, he says, like a fish. Also, imagining, if you learn that it's the cuttlefish, I guess that would be the most pashut out of the different ones. The cuttlefish, take, is be'etzem a fish. I mean, technically it's called a squid. It swims around. If you look at it, probably most people will call it a fish. It's not mamish a fish. It's take, briyaso, its shape, its tzura, its mahalach is doma leDag. Mitzvah tomorrow will continue. Third siman, Bryce and Menachos is